comes to bats around the world, how much variation is there? I know that there's some really large bats in Asia, right?
There's big variation. There's, yes, large bats in Southeast and in Asia,
What's
Africa.
the biggest bat?
The biggest bat has a wingspan of almost 6 feet. I
Whoa.
have a colleague who swears that the biggest ones sometimes actually get to 6 feet.
What is that bat?
Flying foxes. There are 200 kinds of flying foxes. Some of them are small and some are big.
Look at the size of that sucker.
These are really neat bats. And it's not just these great big bats, but one of the world's smallest mammals is a bat. The little bumblebee bat from Thailand weighs a third less than a U.S. penny.
Look at the size of that thing. That's in the Philippines? Is that what that is? Is that what it says, Janie? Yeah.
These flying foxes are in the Philippines, yes, but they're in a wide area of the old world tropics. We're very concerned about them because, for
Go back
one,
to that photo with the guy next to it, so we can see it. The perspective. No, the one, yeah, that one. Look at that. That's crazy.
I think it's a little too close.
Well, that's
forced perspective.
That's kind of like holding your fish out a bit in front of you to exaggerate.
But it seems, even if it's a forced perspective, that seems pretty large.
You know, I've never gone there and personally seen it, but I'm told that there's a place on the island of Bali where there's a guy that has tamed wild flying foxes that have these nearly 6-foot wingspans. And visitors can actually come, and he'll call them down out of the trees, and they can hang on their arms sometimes for a photo. These are wild bats.
So he tamed them with food, just got them accustomed to feeding off
Well, one of the secrets of I don't know if you've seen my large photo collection. I have the largest collection of bat photos in the world. And a lot of my photos, I get these incredible pictures because I can actually train bats to come and do their natural thing where I can photograph them.
And how do you do that?
Well, when I was a teenager, I learned falconry. And in falconry, you train the hawk to come back on call for a small reward in your hand. And it's the same thing with bats. You train them to get a reward from coming to your hand. And
there's some of your photos there?
Yeah.
Whoa. And what has that little fella got in his mouth?
He's got a fig. Now, that brings up a whole nother story. Bats like that account for up to 98% of the first seed dispersal into cleared areas in Africa. And as you may be aware, desertification is one of the biggest threats in Africa. People cut down the forests. They abandon the land after a few years when it's not any longer productive. And then you very much need something to reseed it. And these fruit-eating bats are often badly over-harvested for human food, and most recently because they've been wrongly blamed as the source of Ebola. And when that happens, people don't tolerate them anymore, and there goes the seed dispersal that people need if they're going to continue to have viable land.
Now, you just said over-harvested for human food. So it's really common that people eat bats. I know that was the wet market theory initially out of the Wuhan area, that people were eating bats.
Actually, although that was speculated early on, when they searched the market, they could find no evidence that bats had been sold there.
Yeah.
But bats, there's evidence that bats were eaten at one time by American Indians. There have been clay pots found full of bat bones that looked like people were cooking them up to eat. But in memorable history, there hasn't been bat eating in the New World. But
in memorable history? What do you mean?
Well, what I'm saying is there is evidence that American Indians occasionally ate bats because there have been pottery jugs with lots of bat bones in them that looked like they were eaten probably by Indians. But in the Old World, where bats are much larger, they are frequently eaten, and that's a major cause of their decline.
Like what part of the world are bats eaten the most?
Pacific Islands in Indonesia, Southeast Asia, but also the places like Madagascar.
And so, how do they cook bats? Like, what's a common way to
I've
serve up a bat?
Got a picture of them boiled in coconut milk in Guam.
Yeah? Did you try it?
No.
Would you feel bad about eating a bat since you love them so much?
Well, I think I don't see a reason to play favorites among animals. Some people think it's okay to rear cattle and poultry and things in horrible circumstances to eat, but it's totally bad if a hunter goes out and shoots something from the wild to eat. Actually, I know this isn't going to set well with everybody, but I would rather, in many cases, see us harvesting wild animals, and it would be more compatible with a healthy environment than cutting down all the trees in a rainforest so that we can run cattle.
Listen, I agree with you. I'm on your side with that. But there's not enough wild animals for everybody.
Well, they're not, but there is something to be said for the hunting side. Hunters get abused a lot by conservationists that become too emotionally involved with their animals. People often ask me, you must really love bats. No, I don't really love bats. I'm a scientist who's very fascinated by them, and I'm impressed with how valuable they are, how much we need them. But when I go out to do conservation, I'm looking out for both bats and people. And I think that's the only way we can really be successful. When we get too emotional about animals and we think they have rights that we need to look out for over human needs, then we start getting into trouble. I, for example, years ago, led the way in getting a national park created in American Samoa. And how it's all started was there were commercial hunters that were devastating flying foxes. They were shooting them and selling them to Guam for a delicacy. And in a very short time, they had wiped out most of the flying foxes from the whole area.
It's caught in the crossfire.